Welcome, guys, to the starter blueprint of Entre Filmmaker. Here, I share with you my 7 years of experience, how I basically built this business when I came in 2010 to the US. I did little bit of filming and film jobs before, but got really going 4 years ago. And in this starter blueprint, I'm sharing with you all my secrets, how to basically start from scratch a business, a viable business, a six-figure business where you can really thrive making the films you want, making great money, and using really techniques, tactics, and hacks that I have not seen many people in our industry being using. So a quick disclaimer: I apologize, for eventually grammatical errors or spelling mistakes and so on. This is my second language. I'm originally from Germany, as many of you probably know. So please forgive me for that. But it's more important for me to get really this content out to you because I think this will really help to jumpstart your career. Let's jump into this. Jump. Let's go. So, 3 ways to start your film career. Which one should you choose? Meaning, how do you get there? 2 hours performing on stage is worth more than 8 hours of practice, says Bob Dylan, singer and songwriter. And I think he's right. I used to be a musician, classical music, and played viola, and it couldn't be more true. On stage, what you learn over there can never be outweighed through performing, or practicing at home. So first, I want to show you 3 ways how usually people get into the industry, get started. So the first one is a pretty obvious one. Many do that. It's going into the field with internships and unpaid on-set jobs. On-set means film sets. The second one is also pretty popular. It's basically going to film school, spending a crap load of money, and then hoping, to come out as a filmmaker and then being hired for tons of money. The third one is paid film school. It's a terminology that I basically coined, and it's basically kind of a hybrid of the two first ones. So it's basically kind of experimenting, kind of being on set, and kind of being in film school, but instead of having everything unpaid or with a low paid version of this is all paid, and that's why I call it paid film school. And I will show you what this entails, how to get there, and if this makes sense for you to do. So let's start with the internships and unpaid on-set jobs. I want to walk you through, the pros and cons. So first, you learn, the field and jobs fast because it's really the real world you work in. So you are on set, you really make connections over there. You see what's really going on. It's not kind of starting small unless you're on a small set, but you can work, pretty much on a big feature film, even on a low entry or in a low entry job. So that's a pretty cool thing. I think it's a great opportunity to do networking, great networking opportunities here. You meet already people that are in the industry, and if you are good in networking, if you're good talking to people, then this is a great opportunity to build the career based on those relationships. Learn from the pros when on a big set. So that's pretty similar, like what I said before. And you see already how the big guns are doing it instead of, let's say, if you would start from scratch to figure this out by yourself. You can basically watch the big guys and then just emulate what they do. Possible career opportunities within the network on big sets. So often people ask me, how do I get, to the next level? So one of the things is you start as an assistant. Let's say you want to become a DP, a director of photography, or a director, and you start, either in an intern kind of job, or as an assistant, second or third degree level assistant, and then basically work your way up from there. It's basically the old way to work yourself into the film industry has been very proven because you get really to learn what's going on, and you get also trained by what that industry, that field needs. Getting exposed to many potential positions on film sets so you can figure out and check what you like. You can observe the gaffers, the electricians. You can observe what it means to be a director, to be a DP, or even an actor or a sound guy, and it gives you an exposure to all kinds of possible positions that exist on a film set. And even though you signed up for, let's say, the electrician or electric department, that gives you an idea if you might want to switch to a different field within the film set. You get to work in different environments. That's very practical. Every time something new, a new kind of challenge, new film, new people often, unless you are hired by the same people over and over because you made a name for yourself. So that's a great thing to do. I think this is a great way when you just leave high school or are super young, in that age, right before college or in the middle of college, because it takes some time to really get your way up there. You need a couple of years in order to make serious income money, and that gives you also enough support that you can just live from that. So let's go to the cons of, doing internships and unpaid on-set jobs. First years of salary are minimum wage at best. Statistics show that many don't make more than $75 to $100 a day. And that's already quite a lot. Often, many of those jobs are actually unpaid, especially the internship jobs. I think till you get to a wage or a salary that you can support yourself properly or even a family takes really a bunch of years. And that's not even guaranteed because it really depends how good you are, how good you become. Often you have more than 14-hour work days. There is obviously high competition to get those internships and unpaid on-set jobs. So it's not just because they are unpaid that you can just walk in there and you get it. There's a lot of competition, wanting those jobs, especially on the higher end of the spectrum, let's say commercials or feature film. If you screw up and do it, a couple times, that word travels really fast, and then it's very hard to get invited back for other jobs because you are pretty much dependent on those relationships. And if you make if you make a major screw up mistake, for example, let's say you are an assistant, a camera assistant, let's say a loader, and you screw up the footage, I have heard multiple stories like that, then I think that travels very, very fast on set and beyond the boundaries to probably not hire you again because you don't seem to be reliable. So that can be a con. Second, study film, video, media in college or university, meaning film school. So the pros. You have a good opportunity to network with a lot of people over there, if you're a people person, obviously. And often I hear that, later on, people from, when they are on set and really in the job and in the field, that they actually often hire people that they know from film school. It's a great opportunity to play around with the gear. It's insured. It's already paid by the film school or the college or university, and you can really figure out and try out a large array of gear, cameras, try out, different styles and so on, different lights, whatever there is. It's a great opportunity to play around with gear. They usually have in university and college a great variety of equipment that you can use, and you can figure out what and you can learn and figure out what works in which way. So no need actually to buy anything from your own money. It's a safe environment in which to make basically mistakes. We spoke a little earlier about making mistakes when you are working as an internship, or we spoke a little earlier talking about being an intern or an assistant and making mistakes. So here you can make all the mistakes in the world, and the mistakes are there in order to be to learn from them. Good colleges in general have a good equipment department, great variety, everything what you need. You learn collaborating with colleagues on an eye level. So there's not so much such a hierarchy that you get later when you're really working in the field, where there's really like above the line, below the line, all those positions like the director of photography, then the assistant, the gaffers, the electricians, and so on. There's a certain hierarchy, and you don't have that much because you don't have that much in a film school, because everybody kind of starts from the same place and just plays around. Now, the cons of film school. It's very expensive. $30,000 and more is not unusual per year. So you can make the math when you study for 3-4 years, for example. Extra costs that you will run into when producing, those films as a student on top of your tuition. Yes, I could not believe it. I researched that on a bunch of universities and asked students from film schools, and they all attested that, yes, on top of it, you have to actually pay those productions. It's a great way to go into debt that can take your whole life to actually repay. Make the math, right? 30,000 and more. You can end up with hundred or if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Going to college will take in general longer and delays actually the experience from the real world, because bear in mind, going to college is kind of playing around, having probably some drugs, making on the side some films, but it's really not the real world. You will see later, you actually have to start from scratch all over again. So real world experience is necessary, no matter if you go to film school or not. So when you come out of film school, you pretty much start at the bottom as everybody else. You pretty much start at the bottom like everybody else. You have pretty much no income while studying, unless you have a side job, but that's pretty tough. Making films by itself is already such a full-time job. You will be out there long hours and the weekend and the nights. So when are you going to, being a waiter or a waitress and making some extra money, on minimum wage? I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think so. It's such a cool idea. It's also not a real world environment. It's film school. You are safe. You can make mistakes, but it's also a whole different pace. It's very mellow in most of the cases. It's very theoretical. I have heard people saying, especially from the New York area, that they went to film school, but they hardly did any films. They made maybe 2 or 3 films in their whole 3-4 years of education, and lots of that stuff was actually theory. Honestly, theory is great, but I have never seen anybody who had better theory than someone else and making more money because of that. It's always actually because of practice, that you know a lot of practical things in the field. That's what generates you money, not knowing basically the theory behind filmmaking, television, and so on. You start from the bottom when entering the pro world after graduation. So that's often a bummer, because people think, especially when someone is really good in film school, is kind of a little bit the star, the king in their grade, and they graduate and they have, let's say, some experience directing, but it's not that they immediately get a job as a director. They start pretty much like everybody else from the bottom. In most cases, there's obviously some There's obviously some exceptions here and there, but the majority starts from the bottom and basically wasted another 3-4 years. You are basically lagging behind your counterparts at least 3-4 years who did not go to film school, because there's a lot of people who basically skip that, start as a intern or an assistant, even when they come just out of high school, when they graduated, and those guys are usually younger and have already more under their belly because they didn't waste their time at film school. It also delays learning from the challenges and mistakes that you for sure will do in the pro world. Those challenges are usually much different than what you encounter in film school. And negotiating is one, contracts, how to write contracts, how to deal with people in a professional way, not just your bodies from film school, that you have kind of a schlucksy tone on hand and talk to them, in a casual way. So it's a whole different world of challenges that you will meet there when you go in the real world, in the real field. Third, study filmmaking online and find for yourself a super niche. So that's my third approach, paid film school. The pros: combines basically both worlds because you are in the field and learning the craft of filmmaking, meaning you get already paid jobs, you deal with clients, you deal with people on a real basis, and at the same time you learn the craft of filmmaking. And you might ask, like, man, I have no clue really, or how do I start? I don't have really the right gear for that. And we will address that during the course. That's why we are here, right? There's lots of stuff on the web to help you to get started for free, lots of tutorials, whether it's how to use cameras, what kind of cameras or equipment to buy, how to edit, how to direct. Basically, you have film school online somewhere about almost every topic for free. Online learning is obviously much faster because you don't need to wait for the professor going through the material. You are also not exposed to other distractions like, your female or your male distractions, drugs, or, just, the other students. It's free education, more or less. It requires just your internet and your computer, and you can get started, immediately. With this approach, paid film school, you start to make money right away in, general, pretty much with your first project. That's how I did it. And I walk you through how to do that you, even though you have very little experience, how to get actually your first project kind of up and running. You get real production experiences with client and crews when you get to the level to hire people. Since you are now your own boss, it allows you to make mistakes safely, meaning it's great. It's a great benefit like what you had in film school, as I showed you, where you can make mistakes. But since you are your own boss, you screw maybe up a little bit with the client, but you will have more than one client. So if you burn through a few clients, unless you don't learn from the mistakes that you made, then I think that's a great way of, doing and experimenting, the heck out of it. I do that, all the time in each project. I want to push harder and want to do more. And sometimes on the expense that it could kind of almost crash. But, there are mechanisms how you can always save, the project and your butt. It's a great opportunity to find your specialty and passion. So when you are your own boss, you obviously, and you start, making your own films first for other people, you have to be kind of just a jack of all trades. And I got a little bit of a negative connotation, but I think we have so over-specialized that, it's very hard to find generalized people. And this is a great way of figuring out, you have to you have to handle the camera, you have to be the director, you have to come up maybe with the concept, you have to be the negotiator, the producer, the lighting guy, and sometimes maybe even the actor. So it's a great way actually really to test out the waters in a real life situation. The cons of paid film school is you don't start out immediately with the big guns, with the big connections. You start small. Not everyone feels comfortable to close deals initially. You have to, go out and find people who are interested in hiring you for their needs, to make a film for them, making a promo, a commercial, or so a promo or a commercial. So you need to learn, and I'm absolutely convinced everybody can learn that. If you tell me, oh, I'm very introvert and I will never pick it up, hey, dude, you will learn it. Everyone has to learn it. And there is no such a thing that people just come to the world are introverts or extroverts. Even the extroverts who maybe it looks like naturally they have quicker, they have a faster tendency and are quicker successful in bonding and making relationships, but in the end it requires the same amount of time to learn the skills in order to persuade, convince people, and having people to trust you. So no excuses on that. You must be self-motivated and hungry for learning more. If you don't have that, then I would say you learn a craft where you just go and find a day job, because this is a field uses all of your creativity, all the inches of your body, your brain, your emotions. You go through roller coasters, but it's really exhilarating. It's really amazing, and in the end, really rewarding. My verdict for this first module: I define paid film school as the optimal stage in, making money, making quick money, making great money, and learning along the way. I call this entrepreneurial filmmaking. That's why what I created here is Filmmaker, obviously. So entrepreneurial filmmaking is cheaper education. It's paid film school, an opportunity to work in the real world instantly, gets you a head start on your film school colleagues who's still wasting 3-4 years spending a crap load of money and then have to start from the bottom again, and you are already working in the field. You can make great money really quickly. I would say within weeks. It gives you a tremendous freedom to experiment and find your path in the real world. So you did it! This was the first video of Module 1. Was hard? I hope not. So, just to give you an overview, the first module is basically a theoretical overview why we do what we do, so that you get an idea. Because I want you to understand, I could give you all the tools right away into your hand, and then I could basically give you the fish and you eat the fish, but I want you basically to learn how to fish, and therefore you need a little bit of kind of the background of what we do here, so that you understand when one question comes up during your start, that you can kind of derive it on your own and get there on your own by the mindset and by the mentality that I'm trying here to convey to you. So let's move over to our next video of Module 1, and we are talking about what happens if you are in a day job and you want to actually are thinking of making a film career, but you don't want to leave your day job and want to kind of test the waters. How would you do that? So I walk you through the theory over there, and then so I see you over there. So I see you in a few moments. So I see you over there. Talk to you then.